Welcome in to the Optimize Your Job Internship Search workshop here presented by National University Career Services. In this workshop, we're going to walk you through job search processes, but also how to optimize those processes and use different resources and strategies to your advantage to make sure that your job or internship search is the best use of your time and you're maximizing the time spent in your job or internship search. What we're going to talk about today, we'll start with the job search and viewing that as a process. And for the rest of the workshop, feel free to interchange the words job and internship with either of those words, or even practicum or experiential learning or anything like that. The tips and suggestions that we'll provide today really focus around how to find any of those types of experiences, and the strategies and resources would be very similar for any of those. So feel free to switch out the words job or internship or practicum or any of those experiential opportunities. But first, we want to talk about the job search as a process and what that process looks like and how to conceptualize where in that search process you might be, because that will provide you with opportunities to figure out what you want to work on or where you could be working on different things, what resources and strategies you could employ at that particular point in the process. It also gives you a framework for tracking progress, which we'll talk about at the very end as well. We'll talk about how to organize and prioritize your job search. We'll talk briefly about networking. We have a whole nother workshop on networking. But when we're talking about job searching, we really need to talk about networking in conjunction with that, because that is a very critical and important part of the process for job searching, is engaging and utilizing your network. So we'll touch on that as well. The majority of the workshop will focus on what I call the 3 tiers of job searching. And what the 3 tiers of job searching is really a time management framework for how to spend your time in job searching. And with each of those tiers, we'll talk about what resources and strategies you can employ within each of them as you're looking to execute on optimizing your job search. And at the end, we'll talk about how do you track your progress in that job search so that you can see that you're making progress, so that you can see that you're having successes along the way and stay motivated in your job search process. Here is a slide that has a lot of information on it, and we'll walk through it and kind of talk through each of the different components of the job search as a process. I think that it's important to view the job search as a process like this because it gives you different places to check in and different places to look at to see, what is it that I could be working on? Where am I in this process right now? And how can I keep moving around kind of the process circle to keep that cycle in motion so that I feel like I'm always having some sort of success or moving in some sort of direction towards my end goal, which is to get that job or internship or whatever it is that you're looking for. Research is almost always the starting point of any job search. And there's 3 components that you probably are going to want to really delve into as far as research is concerned. Number 1, yourself. You want to know you. And this is because you're going to be crafting resumes, cover letters, references, application materials, and you're also going to be searching for jobs that you're hopefully going to be interested in. You want to find something that's meaningful to you. And so if you've never done any reflection on what is it that I'm looking for in a job? What is it that I'm looking for in work or in a company even specifically? What do I want to do in the day-to-day? These are all questions you might want to ask yourself before or as you're starting a job search process. Know what you're looking for, because that will assist you in the job search process. When you've reflected on that and you kind of know, what is it that I'm looking for in a company? What is it that I'm looking for in a job? What is it that I'm looking for even in a job description? That will help me know whether opportunities are going to be meaningful and to spend time on applications for those and things like that. So know yourself. Know your industry. Certain factors about your industry might be really informative as to your job search process. Specifically, things like hiring timelines, traditional hiring periods, if there are different times throughout the year when hiring in your industry typically occurs, that can really help to inform why your job search maybe isn't going the way you wanted it to go, because maybe that's just not a great period of time in your industry to be looking for a job, but maybe 2 months from now is going to be a great period of time to be looking for a job in your industry based on kind of traditional hiring timelines within those industries. There's different hiring timelines within industries. There's also different hiring timelines based on kind of what level of position you're looking for. Entry-level hires or hires that require an entry-level, maybe college degree, typically occur within the framework of your traditional college structure, right? So you have springtime hiring, you have fall-time hiring, and it functions around those kind of more traditional semesters. So even understanding little pieces about your industry or about the types of jobs that you're looking for just can help provide context to the when and the how of any given industry as far as a job search is concerned. It can just help prepare you for how many or how few opportunities you might be seeing at any given time throughout the year. Moreover, knowledge on industry will also provide you with, hopefully, potentially, some companies that you might be interested in working for. We'll talk more about that when we get into the 3 tiers of job searching, but one of the critical pieces of this research is researching the actual down to the level of companies. What are the companies that you want to work for, and getting into their websites and really researching those companies. When are they hiring? What types of positions do they have? What do they call certain things even? Because every company has a different word or title for different positions. So you might think you're searching for the right thing, but maybe that company calls it something a little bit different. And so then you end up, with a new keyword that you might use in your search processes or things like that to be able to enhance your search. So research is important, and there's quite a few different levels to that research that you might be executing on as well. As you're starting your job search process, one of the key things is to make sure that you have application materials ready. I say pre-prepare application materials, even though you'll notice later on we're going to be tailoring those application materials, but I like to have them pre-prepared because if you don't have a baseline to work with as far as your resume, your cover letter, any sort of other like baseline application materials, when you find that opportunity and you realize that the deadline is in 2 days, because sometimes that does happen. Some companies hire very, very quickly. Some companies have longer application periods. But if you find one of those opportunities and you happen to just see it and there's only 2 days, a day left until you get your application in, if you have to create material from scratch, or if you haven't really polished up your resume and your cover letter and things like that, then you won't really have time to be able to tailor them because you'll just be kind of creating them as quickly as possible. So I like to pre-prepare application materials. Now, don't go too far with this because we are going to tailor those application materials later on, right? But having a baseline ready, maybe a master resume or kind of a framework for how you're going to build your cover letters, all of those things can be really helpful as you're going into the job search process. And in career services here at NU, we can help with that. We are happy to do one-on-one appointments through Handshake to be able to go over your specific resume, cover letters that you're making, whether that's in kind of a pre-preparation kind of phase or if you're tailoring them to a specific job description. The next step is finding openings. And this is kind of the focal point of this workshop, and we'll get to the 3 tiers here in just a little bit. This is where you're actually finding opportunities to apply for. How are you going to find those opportunities? What resources are you going to use? What strategies are you going to employ to find openings to apply to? Once you've found those opportunities, now it's time to tailor your application material. We want customized, tailored resumes and cover letters for any application that we're going to send in. These can be very little changes, such as switching a key action verb on your resume to match the job description that you're applying to, or they can be rather large customizations. Cover letters should, by far and large, be written kind of specifically to that job, to that company, and to that job description you're applying to. Every company talks about things a little bit differently, and every company is different. And your cover letter's job is to make sure that that company knows that they specifically are the place where you want to go to work. It's not just any place, it's them. And you want to create that connection between yourself and them in that cover letter. So you really want to customize the cover letter, and then again, tweak and customize and tailor that resume to those job descriptions. You'll make a huge impact by doing these things. And again, all things we can help you with in the Career Services office. We want to customize those. We want to spend the time doing that because you typically spent a lot of time finding those openings. You spent a lot of time in those 3 tiers of job searching, doing what you need to do to find job applications. Once you've finally located one, especially if it's at a company that you really want to work for, you want to put your best foot forward. And so that's why we really want to focus in on quality over quantity in my mind when we're talking about applications. Of course, the next step is going to be actually applying to that job and then following up. We want to be in contact with that company. We don't want to just be a name that comes across their screen. when we're submitting our applications. We want to follow up, get in touch with them, whether that's before, after, or during, at some point during that application process, to try to be out in front of them, creating that connection and really showing them that we want to work for them, right? How are you going to set yourself apart as a candidate? Because once we found openings, we want to be able to put our best foot forward. Then, of course, you're waiting for the interview process to begin. And really, at that point, you're just restarting the process. And so the process moves in a cyclical fashion. After you've applied for a job and you're maybe going through an interview process, you don't put all of your eggs in one basket. Now we're researching again, maybe researching a new company, and then we're going to go through the process again and continue where we're going. And sometimes we're probably skipping some steps the second time through. Maybe pre-preparing doesn't need to happen every time. Maybe even some of the research doesn't need to happen every time until we are tailoring our application materials. So we can kind of go back to finding more openings, going through the tailoring process, applying and following up. So there are different ways to kind of maneuver through the process, but there's always a spot to check in and see kind of where am I doing, what am I doing in my job search process, and how are we going to go about kind of working on that at any given time during the job search. How do we organize and prioritize a job search? And I talk specifically about this because I want to bring attention to the fact that there is a finite amount of time in any given day. And typically, when you're in a job search process, there's a lot of other things going on in life that you're also dealing with. And so you don't have all day to spend in a job search. So we want to make sure that we're organizing and prioritizing our time as effectively as possible in order to make sure that we're maximizing the time we have when we're actually committing to the job search. A couple things that you might want to do. Create a spreadsheet for tracking whether that's the research you're doing, whether that's the companies that you are looking to apply to, whether that's the actual jobs that you are applying to. And we have some templates. I'll show you an example of one at the very end of the workshop today. You can also reach out to us. All of our contact information will be at the end, and we can send our template to you that you can use to help kind of track and organize your job search. Have your resume and cover letters reviewed by a career advisor. Talked about that already. We are here to do that. Please take advantage of those services. We're happy to review your resume and review your cover letter and make sure that those are optimized, even if it's kind of tailoring that towards a job description as well. Write down what you're looking for in a job or company. When we talk about doing that research on yourself, really kind of delve into what is it that you're looking for? What are those keywords? What is the company culture that you're wanting to be involved with? What kind of products or services is the company, that you want to be involved with creating or doing? All of those things can inform your job search as you're looking at different job descriptions. Does that really appeal to me? I could do that work, but is that something that's going to be meaningful that I'm going to really want to do over the long period of time? Utilize your network. We'll talk about this here in just a little bit, but utilizing your network is critical. We want to activate the existing network we have. We may even want to expand our network. Want to make sure that is doing its work for us. We obviously are going to commit a lot of time to doing our own job search processes, but there's other people on our network that also know people, and you never know what conversations might lead to as you activate that network and how the network might find opportunities for you. Anytime we can take advantage of that, we want to do that. A couple things not to do. Don't spend too much time customizing your resume and cover letter before you have those specific job descriptions in hand that you're actually applying to. If you're spending a lot of time kind of making the resume absolutely perfect before you even have a job description you're looking at, you're going to miss the beat on getting that job description really tailored into your resume and vice versa. We want to see that job description reflected in your resume through the use of keywords that they have, through the qualifications that they have. And so get a good baseline done for your resume in that pre-preparation stage, but you're going to want to move into kind of a tailored approach at some point. So it doesn't have to be perfect. You just have a good start and then be able to tailor it from there. Don't spend all of your time using just one or a few job search resources and tools. Diversify what you're doing. And we'll talk about that in the 3 tiers of job searching. What is it that you're utilizing from a resource standpoint, from a strategy standpoint? Don't pigeonhole yourself into just one particular area. Make sure that you have lots of resources and tools that you're utilizing to maximize the coverage of that potential job search as well. And don't forget to track your progress and mark your successes. The job search process can be kind of daunting. It can be very methodical or rote. It depends on kind of how you're doing it. Don't get stuck in a rut in your job search process. Track your progress so that you know that you're moving in a direction. And we'll talk about that in the 3 tiers and how you can kind of utilize that within each of those sections. Mark down when you succeed at something, even if that's finishing some research you were doing, even if that's what did you do on your job search today to progress down that path of the job search process, right? Mark down your successes so that you constantly see movement or progress in your job search, because that will be important to staying motivated in the entire process. Let's talk networking before we get into our 3 tiers. And the reason I want to talk networking first is this. Networking is kind of the overarching umbrella that covers all of these potential different processes that we're going to talk about in the 3 tiers of job searching. Over and above everything, your network will find you opportunities. There used to be a statistic out there, and this statistic is a few years old at this point, but it said 80% of jobs are found via networking or found via the hidden job market. That statistic maybe has changed, but I would argue that it probably has only gone up. And we want to make sure that we're taking advantage of who you know working for different companies, who you know working in different industries will matter and set you apart as a candidate in those places as well. So not only are you going to get access to more possible opportunities, you're also going to automatically put yourself at the top of candidate pools if you know people who work within those companies. Internal referrals are hugely popular for companies to make successful hires, because why would I not hire someone who's getting referred to me from an internal person who already works for my company and is successful? If they're going to recommend somebody, that's absolutely someone I'm going to consider over other candidates. So we want to make sure that we're taking advantage of that as much as possible. Activate your existing network. Be sure that your network knows what you are looking for. This is the most basic form of networking when you're in a job search process. If the people you know don't know what you're looking for in a job, they can't help you. There's no way for your network to bring in opportunities or to create connections for you. So make sure your network knows what you are looking for in a job or career. And this can be down to the most basic level of networking. Family and friends. If your family and friends don't know what you're looking for, they can't help you. One of my favorite stories that I love to tell, I was working with a student who was a civil engineering student and was looking for a job in the Department of Transportation locally where she lived. And I told her she was heading out for spring break, and I told her she was going back home. I said, tell people you know, activate your network. And she utilized the most basic form of networking known, and that is she told her mom. And lo and behold, 2 weeks later, after spring break, her mom had a conversation with a family friend. That family friend happened to know someone who was in charge of the Department of Transportation in their local city. That student ended up with an internship at that Department of Transportation in that city directly as a result of activating their network in the most basic form in order to make that connection, right? And if you wouldn't have done that, that connection would have never happened, right? A basic networking conversation can go a long ways, but only if people know what you're looking for, right? And it's not like you're sitting there begging your network for opportunities. You are just informing them as to what you are looking for. And you'd be surprised how many people will keep that in mind as they're having conversations out in the world and might find opportunities for you and connections for you to be able to make to empower your job search process. Explore your networking connections so you can figure out who to engage more. Maybe through LinkedIn, you have some secondary connections or something like that at a company that you're looking to apply for. Build out that network if you are looking to expand into different places, right? Look at those connections. Where are you connected? Does that shape which companies you're looking at? Maybe it even shapes which companies you're looking at. Engage in things like informational interviews if you're building your network. An informational interview is a very popular tool for expanding your network. And really all an informational interview is asking essentially to sit down with someone for a cup of coffee and just chat about their career path. How did they get to where they are? What do they like about their job? How could you follow in a similar path? You're not asking for a job, although sometimes that might come up through the course of conversation, but you're really just asking about them. And people love to tell their stories. And then that person that you're doing an informational interview with, where you're just kind of picking their brain about how they got into the industry, what their career path looked like, now all of a sudden they're engaged with you. They might be asking you questions, and you have a new networking contact within that place. You would be surprised how many people are very open to doing an informational interview. Build your network through company outreach. actually engaging with people, LinkedIn can be a place to do this. See who you're connected with, make connection outreaches with personalized messages on LinkedIn. Attending career fairs can be a big way to expand your network because you're going to meet the recruiters, the people in HR that work at those different companies that attend those career fairs. So if you have local career fairs, online career fairs, any of the career fairs that we offer here at National University Career Services, all opportunities to create those connections. If you're going to any association meetings or conferences that are put on by associations in your industry, amazing places to network. And most of those conferences are really built around the idea of networking. So take advantage of that. And don't forget about what I like to call happenstance networking. Happenstance networking occurs all the time. Who you sit next to on an airplane, who you have cut your hair, where you interact with people in line at the grocery store. These are opportunities to engage with someone. And it's not that you should be talking about your career with everybody in those scenarios, but you never know if you don't have a conversation with that person sitting next to you in the airplane could work for a company that you might be really interested in working for. No, those types of happenstance networking opportunities do come up on a regular basis. And so you can expand your network in kind of surprising ways if you're aware of kind of who's around you and maybe taking more opportunities to engage in that happenstance networking of who you happen to be around at the time and having a conversation with that person. Particularly when you're in job search mode, it's more likely that you might engage in this happenstance kind of networking. With that, and keeping in mind that networking is a critical component of all of the tiers of job searching, essentially, it's the umbrella that kind of binds all of this together and provides you with kind of an overall feeling of like, do people know that I'm job searching and how can I utilize that? Let's jump into some more specific, targeted ways that you can utilize resources and strategies in your job search. Again, I view this as more of a time management system than anything else. So we really want to dive into how much time are we spending in each of these tiers and how do we really get to know each of them in a way that will optimize our time spent in a job search, because all of them we're going to want to use, but we're going to want to use them each in different kind of time chunks, if you will, in order to optimize our time spent in our job search. So for each of these tiers, we'll talk about resources and strategies that you can use within each of them and approximately how much time maybe you should be spending in them as you go through your job search process. We'll talk about tier one, kind of the meta search engines, and this is where you probably spend the least amount of time. We're still going to spend time here, but we want to spend more time in things like tier two, where we have targeted job search engines and industry specific resources. And then we want to spend the most of our time in our job search with tier three, which is the targeted job search process. And we'll go into details on what that looks like when we get to tier three. Tier one is kind of your standard starting point for most job searches. These are the meta search engines, the big search engines that cover wide swaths of positions that have hundreds and hundreds of thousands of postings in them. And you kind of have to sift through those and know how to search in order to make use of these sites. Again, we want to spend some time here, but don't get stuck in a rut on these search engines. Oftentimes what happens is you end up just sitting in search engines like Indeed or ZipRecruiter or Monster or CareerBuilder, Simply Hired, Glassdoor. There's a lot of different options of these big go-to search engines, and you just find yourself typing in keywords over and over again and then scrolling, almost doom scrolling, right, through postings because so many of them pop up. And undoubtedly, never mind what you type into the keywords, accounting jobs will be there because that just happens to be always for what I find on Indeed. And so you're sifting through a lot of postings, some of which may not make any sense for you. Even if you're doing a great job typing in keywords, you're still going to have to sift through a lot of postings. This creates that rut in your job search process where you're kind of just going through the motions of typing in keywords and seeing what pops up and then scrolling through things. And it's not particularly engaging, and it can become very draining and kind of demotivating almost in order to keep your job search process moving. We don't want to get stuck here. Now, I seem to be down on these meta search engines, but I will tell you the reason they exist and the reason that things like sites like Indeed are as big as they are is because they do work. These are ways that people find jobs. So again, we do want to spend time here. We do want to type in those keywords every so often and find jobs that are popping up, especially if we've kind of narrowed down what are those search terms, both from a geographic standpoint, but also from an actual search term standpoint that are getting us the best results. That could be where that company research really comes into play. What are different companies calling the position that I'm interested in, because that informs what you might be using to search for on these bigger search engines, right? So use that research that you did to inform kind of keyword searches that you might be doing on these big search engine sites. One of the best ways, in my opinion, to utilize meta search engines is that they are great for gathering data. When you type in a search, regardless of whether you qualify for the positions that you're seeing or not, if they're related to what you want to do, if they're in the industry, if they're at the companies that would be doing that work, now you're finding out some critical information that can be useful to you as we go through some of our other tiers. Things like, well, who is hiring in my field? What are those job titles that they're hiring for? Where are those jobs located? If you're looking more kind of broadly and you don't have a specific geographic target, you'll start to get some really good information. And when you see postings in your field or at a company that you know does the kind of work that you're looking to do, now you have company names that you can utilize in tier 3 when we start to talk about our targeted job search. Even if you didn't know that company to start with, you now know them because you found them through an Indeed search or something like that. Similar with those job titles. So you have this optimal kind of space for doing some research in tier 1, whereas maybe you're not even applying to jobs. You might find some that you're applying to, but even those jobs maybe that list too many years of experience, or you don't have a particular skill or ability that they are looking for, even those can be useful to you because now you have a company name that you can go and do a little bit more research on and find out a little bit more about them. These meta search engines are great for finding large amounts of different positions. There are huge databases of postings from all over the place, and so you get a lot of postings to look through. That can be very beneficial because sometimes you get to sites where there's not a lot of stuff to look through and there's very few postings. So you get a good swath of postings here to look through. Can be frustrating to get those search terms right, like we mentioned, and oftentimes it's challenging to sift through that many postings. It's just so much to have to look through that can become kind of complicated and again, get you stuck in a rut. So we spend some time here, but then we want to move on and spend more of our time here in tier 2. Tier 2 is what I call targeted search engines and industry-specific resources, which is a mouthful for a name, but that describes kind of what the tools are that we're going to utilize. We're going to spend more time here than in tier 1, but again, probably not as much time as we want to spend in tier 3 when we get to the targeted job search process. What does tier 2 look like? These are things like association job boards. If you have a national association, a regional association, something like that that's associated with your industry or your field, they oftentimes will have their own job boards. And what's really nice about those job boards is those job boards are already custom tailored to your association or whatever that association topic is. The same thing with industry-specific job boards, things like agcareers.com or higheredjobs.com. They're specific to an industry. So unlike an Indeed, where all the kinds of postings are going to be there, now you know that only ag jobs are going to be there. You know that only higher education jobs are going to be there. And so you really start to zero in on what are those postings in there. They're all going to be mostly for the bigger part of those postings are going to be relevant to me as the person who's searching. So association job boards and industry specific job boards can be really helpful. LinkedIn and Handshake for me also fall into tier 2. LinkedIn has more of a meta search engine feel to it as far as the job search board is concerned, but it offers some additional connectivity that you might not get in some of those meta search engines. Things like who are you connected with at those companies, or do you have a secondary or tertiary connection to someone who is in one of those companies that you're seeing a posting for. You can utilize your network a little bit better within LinkedIn to be able to apply to postings. And oftentimes LinkedIn does a good job of kind of matching you to those postings as well. All of the sites do, even Indeed, you can put your profile in and your resume in, right? And make sure that you're getting kind of custom tailored postings sent to you even. LinkedIn does a good job of that. Handshake also does a good job of that. Handshake functions very much like LinkedIn in that way. You can have a profile. The more you interact in the system, the more you're looking at jobs, clicking on jobs within the system, the more it's going to be able to recommend good jobs to you. A lot of those industry-specific job boards or association job boards also have kind of emails that they will send out to you of postings that they think might fit what you're looking for once you've created a profile on them. Most of those are also free. Some associations are hidden behind kind of membership or a paywall of some sort, but a lot of those job boards end up being open even to non-members. So always check into that first to see if there's a free option for those, because oftentimes there will be. Handshake is nice because you know that the postings in Handshake are kind of hand-tailored to people who are working on some sort of college credential degree, whether that's 2-year or 4-year, or some sort of advanced graduate degree. The only people that are in Handshake are people that are going to colleges or universities. And so the employers that are posting in Handshake know that that is who is in Handshake. Therefore, the postings get narrowed down to kind of looking at a very specific set of kind of credentials and criteria that you're not getting kind of on other sites, right? So that's one way it kind of narrows it down. I list idealist.org here. Idealist is your bread and butter, kind of your best resource for a nonprofit job. So if you're looking to work in the nonprofit sector, Idealist is kind of your biggest target there. And again, it's a targeted search engine. It's only nonprofit companies that are posting there. So it becomes much more targeted and tailored to what you might be looking for. If you're looking for a job in the federal government, usajobs.gov is the place to be. All federal jobs get posted on usajobs.gov. And so if you're looking at maneuvering in that direction, that is the website where you will want to be, because all of the postings will go there. You might see postings kind of duplicated in other places for additional kind of reach, but everywhere will end up funneling through usajobs.gov. And that is where those jobs have to be posted. If you are working on applications on usajobs.gov, I would strongly encourage you to work with a career advisor. The process is a little bit different. Even the resumes that they're looking for are a little bit different than what we're looking for outside of the federal government. So they have a particular kind of set of things they want in a resume. So we build a federal resume a little bit differently than we build a standard resume. And the whole job search process on USA Jobs also is just a little bit different for what they're looking for and how they're doing things. So if you want specific assistance on usajobs.gov, reach out to us. We're happy to meet one-on-one with you to talk about kind of your application process and what that looks like within usajobs.gov. Pros and cons of Tier 2. Great for finding industry specific positions within an industry, right? If you're searching on an association or industry specific job board, now you're getting a narrow focus that is much more geared towards what you're looking for. Most of these types of places have networking opportunities built in. Associations, LinkedIn, Handshake, there's networking opportunities or connection pieces within those tools. And so you can utilize those as well as part of your job search process. Sometimes it's challenging to locate an industry-specific job board or an association for particular industries. Maybe your industry isn't one of the industries that has a really big association associated with it. Maybe your industry doesn't have any really big industry-specific job boards. A lot of the times you can find them, but sometimes it can be difficult. So that can be a challenge for Tier 2. Oftentimes, what this results in is much more limited postings, right? When you have a specific job board, now the postings are not hundreds of thousands, it's thousands or even less, depending on how specific that job board is. And so whereas on Indeed, you're getting a huge list of postings from Tier 1 and the meta search engines, now you're getting fewer postings. Oftentimes that could be discouraging. I like to think of it as just more targeted and tailored, as we're finding better opportunities. But sometimes those limited postings can be a little bit frustrating, particularly if that, the industry specific job board is not built out very well, or if they're not pulling from enough places, which can happen with some of these resources. But for the most part, I like spending some time in Tier 2 because it gets you those specific, more tailored opportunities that you're looking for. And typically you're not having to doom scroll quite as much as you would be on some of those Tier 1 opportunities. Tier 3 is the targeted job search. I call it the targeted job search because the whole point of Tier 3 is to really almost reverse engineer the job search process as most people do it. The strategy and process behind the targeted job search is this. Answer the question, where do you want to work? And 10 is an arbitrary number, but I like to say create a top 10 company list. What are the top 10 companies, organizations that you want to work for? You can make it bigger, you can make it smaller. I like 10 as kind of just a general number. You can rotate more companies in as you find the need to do so. But where do you want to be? And that's where some of that research from maybe Tier 1 comes in handy. Maybe you don't know exactly which companies you want to work for, or you don't know who's hiring in your particular industry or area. Go back to Tier 1, run some general searches and find out what companies pop up. Does that company sound interesting to you? Go to their website, do the research, find out more about them. What is their mission? What are their values? What is their company culture like? What product do they create? What clients are they serving? How do you really dig into what it is, that it would be like to work for that company, and create that top 10 list. Where do you want to be? And from there, again, we're almost going to be reinventing the job search process, attacking it from the opposite side. Most of the time, we're searching on search engines and we're looking for kind of opportunities to come to us. Now we want to take the search to them and be on their website, be on their company-specific job boards. Most medium to large-size companies have their own job boards on their own web pages. Typically, most companies are going to post there even before they're going to post anywhere else, or at least simultaneous to posting anywhere else. Why? Because they have a captive audience of people that are already interested in working there. And that idea of being somebody who is already interested in working there before a posting is even made is something that you want to portray throughout the targeted job search process. When you are targeting a company because you know you want to work there before they even post a position, you're now in a completely different space than anybody who is sitting there on a keyword job search site, right? They're typing in keywords, they're waiting for jobs to come to them. You're out going to get the jobs that you're most interested in. This creates a completely different mindset in the job search process. You start to view the process as something where you are pursuing the companies you're most interested in. Your motivation goes up. Your application materials typically improve because when you find an opportunity to apply to at one of those companies you're most interested in, now all of a sudden you have a connection with them. You've already done the research. Hopefully, as we'll talk about in a second, you've even already reached out to them and started to create connections with them to show them that you were interested in working for them. That sets you apart from any other candidate who is not doing that with that particular company. And so we start to change the process. We start to change how we view the job search. Here's how this process looks. Here's how it kind of goes. You got your top 10 list. You go to your top 10 list and you look into your companies. You're on their websites. You're on their job board. You're doing the research. You get to know those companies really well. And one of two things will happen. You'll either go to their job board and you will find a position. You're like, oh, wow, I meet all the qualifications for this position. I'm very excited for this. I'm going to start working on my application. If that happens, contact them. Email is okay, but the phone will set you apart so much more so than emails. Emails are pretty easy. Lots of people are doing those. A phone call to their HR department, to a contact that's listed on that job description, to their talent acquisition department, whatever that might be, sets you apart much more so than just an email. But both or either would work as far as trying to set yourself apart. That phone call will go something like this. I'm really excited to be applying to your company. I've been looking at it for quite a while now. I noticed that this posting is on your job board. I just wanted to let you know I'm working on my application right now, and I'm excited to be submitting it, and you'll see it here in the next couple of days. Something like that. If you need a reason to be on the phone with them, come up with an innocuous question about the job search process or about the application process that you want to ask them. Do you prefer a 1-page or a 2-page resume? Or should I submit it as a PDF or a Word? Like anything that you can do to have an excuse to be on the phone with them works. You make it an intelligent question, obviously, but I think even just being on the phone with them to tell them to expect your application is also fine. You're trying to get your name out in front of them. You're trying to get the fact that you're somebody who's very interested in working for them or willing to take the time out of your day to make that phone call rather than just hitting that submit button on an application, set yourself apart from them, from other candidates. The second way that this all goes, right? You're looking at your top 10 list, you do your research, you're on their job board, you know their company, and you're not seeing any positions that really fit what you're looking for. You know they have those positions because maybe they're posting things that have higher experience levels or whatever it is, but you know they would have the types of jobs you're interested in, but you're just not seeing them on their job board right now. Still contact them. Again, you can find an HR contact. Usually human resources is your best starting point because they're the ones who are in charge of the hiring process and are going to know the most about it. But if you have a contact within the department you want to work in or a hiring manager that you know within that company, those could be spaces to start as well for this contact. Reach out, have that phone conversation with them. Ask them questions like, when do you expect to be hiring for positions like this? Again, it could go something like, I'm very excited to be looking at your company. I'd really like to work here. I'm on your job board and I'm not seeing specifically this type of posting, like whatever you're looking for. When do you think you might be hiring within that department or for that type of position? Typically, again, in HR, they might know what their cycle looks like. What does that look like? Are they going to be planning on hiring within the next couple of months? Can they give that information to you? Probably, if they know it. If the answer to all of those questions is no, I'll always ask one final question. A lot of HR people know each other, and so there's a lot of good connectivity there. So I'll say something like, do you know of anyone else in the area who might be hiring for insert that type of position? They might provide you with a new company to put onto your top 10 list that you can start the process all over with. And so you can see that, again, it becomes kind of cyclical. The best part about that conversation is if they do have a timeline for you, you kind of note that, right? Write it down. Here is the next step in my process with this company. Check back in a month, check back in 2 months, because they said they might be hiring for some of those types of positions at that time, right? So you know when to kind of check back in with them. That gives you timelines, so you don't have to sit there constantly thinking, do I have to be on their website? Have I checked their website today? Should I contact them again? You'll have a timeline with which to operate on that. So again, puts you in front of them, gets your name, your voice, more than just something that comes across their page as an application. Now you're someone who's really motivated and really wants to be there. And you've made contact and you've put yourself in a spot where you're set apart from other applicants. And that's what we want. We want, if you've spent all this time in the job search and finally found a great place to apply to, we want you to be the top candidate. We want you to be the best possible candidate for that job. And the targeted job search process just inherently puts you in that space by encouraging you to reach out and being in touch with people at that specific company. A couple pros and cons. Targets your research companies you're motivated to work for. This, again, changes your view on the job search. You're motivated to be there. When you see an opportunity come up, it's not just, another application you have to fill out. This is an application you get to fill out for a company that you really want to work for. That's exciting. It directs your job search into completable stages. Who's on my top 10 list? Have I done the research? Have I done the contact? Did I find a job to apply for? Rinse, repeat, right? You have another process where you can check in. Where am I at with any of my top 10 companies? And what do I need to be doing with them, right? Am I working on an application? Do I need to reach out and find someone to contact? When's my follow-up point with them, right? So be part of the process there, even within the targeted job search. You're creating connections, and it gets you into a space where you're doing the work, you're targeting the companies, and you're putting yourself out there at the companies that you actually want to work for, right? Not waiting for opportunities to come to you on a job search board, which again, they can and they do. So don't ignore those entirely. We still want to participate in tier 1 and tier 2. We probably just want to spend more of our time in tier 3 to really optimize the value that we're finding in the time spent in our job search. So really do the work. Put yourself out there in front of those companies. It creates kind of that motivational process where you're engaged with the companies that you want to be engaged with, and you're excited to be, doing the job search process with them to target them to see if you can find opportunities with them. Again, maybe one of those top 10 companies falls off the list. Maybe you do all the research and they don't have anything for you and they don't know when they're going to be hiring next. And so maybe they stay on kind of a secondary list of like top 10 companies that were once in the top 10 list. And you do some research and replace them with a new company on that top 10 list. Do the research, contact, apply, and run the whole process again. Again, it creates another cyclical process for you within the job search process to kind of be engaged in. If you're doing all of that, how are you going to track it? There's a lot of different ways you can do it. We've created some very simple kind of tracking templates that are within kind of Excel type documents that you can utilize. Again, if you reach out to us, our contact information will be at the end of the workshop, and we can actually send you these if you want to use them, or you can just imitate what you see on the slide here for yourself or build your own tracking process. Tracking your progress is important because it builds confidence in the process. It shows you that you have had some level of success. It walks you through the processes that you've gone through already to show you that you are making moves, you are progressing your job search in a positive direction. And I like to make sure you're focused on that because that creates that sense of success, that sense of movement that continues to make you motivated towards the job search process. 2 examples here. One of them is a job search tracking sheet. So that might be like your top 10 list. Here's a list of companies, their website, maybe contact names you've pulled from their HR department, list of the last date of contact. Did you contact them? What was that? What did that go like? What kind of notes do you have on that? Do you have a follow-up date? All that sort of thing, right? Did you apply there? Did you find something to apply for? That kind of moves you down into the job application tracking sheet where you can maybe list job titles that you're applying to, which companies you're applying to, links to the job descriptions, when's the application deadline if you're still working on your tailored resume and cover letter, did you submit that online application? Have you done some follow-up? Did you interview, right? And so you kind of see that the process kind of follows itself. Here's my top 10 list about the job search, and then here's kind of the jobs I'm actually applying to and where I'm at with each of those jobs. So you can start to track kind of both sides of things, both the job search part on the company side, but also the actual applications with each of those companies and where you're at in that process as well. Again, I think this creates that sense of progress and motivation throughout your job search. So I do encourage tracking progress as you go. In summary, make sure you stay motivated in your job search. Don't end up in that rut, right? Utilize all of your tools and resources to optimize your search and make the most out of your time spent job searching. Make sure that you're networking. Networking is critical to accessing that hidden job market and making sure that you're a candidate that stands out from the rest of the candidates in the pool. Utilize the 3 tiers, utilize the large search engines, but maybe it's as a starting point for research, but also finding some of those opportunities. Maybe you're using it to generate that top 10 company list, to do some research to put that together. Stay functional in tier 1, but make sure you're moving yourself through to tier 2 and tier 3 as well. Take advantage of industry specific resources, do some searches to find out which of those exist in your industry. Make sure that you're getting those more targeted search options just so that you're not lost in kind of the long list of things that can come with the meta search engines that people are typically using. Execute on the targeted job search, create that top 10 company list, do your research on those companies, be on their company specific job boards, find contact information for them and reach out. Again, HR is a great place to start for that, but you can always potentially maneuver and find somebody more specific within your department or industry that works for that company that you might actually want to connect with as well. HR contacts I suggest always, because part of their job is to find talent for their companies. And so oftentimes they're very much happy to have that conversation with you about your interest in their company, because their job is to look for you. So you're helping them with their job by coming specifically to them and wanting to have a conversation about working there, right? So don't be afraid to have those conversations. That's what they're there for. And oftentimes they really enjoy having those conversations because it actually helps them do their job. And so if you can help them with that, that stands out and makes you a great candidate as well, right? Don't forget, job searching is a process that takes time and effort. Celebrate your progress, track that progress to build your confidence and build your motivation throughout your job search. As you go through that targeted process and you're checking off all the different things you've done, you can feel that success as you move towards making that job search a reality and finding those opportunities to apply to. Of course, if you have any questions or you want to talk about your job search process specifically, that is what we are here for. We can help all the way from the point of figuring out kind of what you want to do with your major to resume creation, cover letter reviews, job search processes. If you want to talk more in detail about any of these processes and the resources that are associated with them, all the way to interview prep and practice interviews as well. And so we can help anywhere in that process as you're looking for your next job or internship or practicum or whatever experiential opportunity it might be. All of our contact information is listed here. You can always reach out to us at careerservices@nu.edu with an email. And if you're in the Handshake system, you can schedule appointments to have a one-on-one conversation with our career advisors at nu.joinhandshake.com. Thank you for tuning in for this workshop, and we'll look forward to working with you.